Metro TV will start in 30 seconds. Good afternoon. I want to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Louisville Metro Council Women's Caucus. I am Councilwoman Josie Raymond from District 10. I want to acknowledge my colleagues who are here. Andrew Owen from District 9, Councilman J.P. Linenger from District 6, Councilwoman Paula McCraney from District 7, Councilman Marcus Winkler from District 17, Councilwoman Barbara Shanklin from District 2, Councilwoman Betsy Rui from District 21, Councilwoman Tammy Hawkins from District 1, and Jenny Mulvey-Woolridge from District 24. Thank you all for being here with us today. The Women's Caucus is rising from the ashes today. We haven't met in a while, and I really hope that this can be the beginning of a new, inclusive, bipartisan, nonpartisan effort to improve conditions for women and everyone in our city. The original goal of the Women's Caucus was to bring us together, to learn from experts, to get our heads around community challenges, and then to see if there are policy solutions that we can implement. My dream, ladies, is for all Metro Council women to be on an ordinance and the men to not even know what's going on. Domestic violence, when I checked in with all the women on council, domestic violence was mentioned time and time again as an area of particular interest and concern in the community, and Councilwoman Chappell was especially helpful in recommending folks that we needed to hear from today. And I can't wait for you all to hear from our guests. I want to share that I personally have kept this issue sort of at arm's length in my public service, from a policy perspective and from an advocacy perspective. And that's because I grew up as a witness to domestic violence. So when I hear that phrase, when I think about that topic, I see my mother's face. But I'm not a little girl anymore, and we can't look away. We cannot look away from this issue in our city. And so during this Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we are coming together to learn what the women of Louisville are facing and how we can make a difference in their lives. So I appreciate our guests being with us today. I want to welcome up our first guests, Executive Director Gretchen Hunt from the Louisville Metro Office for Women is going to get us started.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilwoman. And You brought tears to my eyes, and what a tribute to your mother, your witness to her today, and to all the survivors that are gathered here, because in any room we are in, there are survivors, and that means both direct and indirect survivors. So thank you, Madam Chair, for your bravery and your vulnerability and opening this space. And thank you to everyone, because when we open these conversations about difficult topics of gender-based violence or domestic violence, we create safety. So the fact of having this, the fact of sharing it publicly creates more safety. So this is an intentional act that increases safety from our community. So thank you so much. My name is Gretchen Hunt, and I serve as Director of the Mayor's Office for Women within the Office of Equity. Within the Mayor's Office, I'm a lawyer by training who's worked 25 years in this field, so I believe very strongly that we can create worlds free from violence against women, and I've seen that happen. So really appreciate your leadership here, and hope to see lots come out of this today. So I'm going to quickly just give you a brief overview of what the Office for Women, your Office for Women, is doing to prevent what we call gender-based violence, which is the umbrella, including domestic violence, but it can also be other crimes that happen within domestic violence, like sexual violence or sexual harassment or stalking behavior. So look at that broad umbrella. So the Office for Women, our mission and our vision is really designed around creating a world where everyone flourishes. So our mission is to raise the status of women and gender diverse individuals, but also promote gender equity. So for the men in this room, that also means that we fight for policies like paid parental leave, which you might be interested to know that in Louisville Metro, more men have taken advantage of that leave. More dads have taken advantage of that leave. So that shows that some of the policies that we champion, some of the things that we champion, while they may look like they're designed for women, they end up helping everybody. If we're doing our job right, it will raise everyone's status. There are 4 priorities of the office, and I want to talk about them because some of these other priorities actually do prevent gender-based violence. So we look at economic empowerment of women. When I talk to women in this community, and it's not unlike what you're hearing from your constituents, biggest 3 calls the Office for Women gets from constituents are about housing, domestic violence, and basic economic need for cash assistance, probably very similar to your office. And those all tie in together so that we know that when we improve women's economic status, we are making them less vulnerable to being victims. And so what we have done over the past 4 years, almost 4 years when I've been in this office, has been to try to raise issues like childcare, but also to promote women to consider careers in fields that traditionally have been dominated by men. So the mayor has tasked me with my number 1 priority, most recently being helping to encourage women who are qualified and ready and willing to look at careers in firefighting and policing because of their low numbers there. We know if you look at women's sports right now, you know women can do anything that a man can do, but sometimes that invitation needs to be there. We also focus on community engagement. We know that stronger communities mean prevention from violence as well, and one of the ways we do that is uplifting women and men in our communities. So we have the Office for Women Ambassador Program. I have applications in right now from almost all your districts, so I might be knocking on your doors for a few of you. I will say that Councilwoman Hawkins, there is, I think, an effect in your area. I think about half the applications right now are from District 1. So I'm just, promoting a little healthy competition here. But that's a program, a community engagement and leadership program that engages women and gender diverse individuals from across the 26 council districts to learn more about how government works and then more about how they can promote gender equity. You'll hear from Brittany Hill-Whitehead, who's one of our rock stars, in a minute. Again, when they connect more with each other, they can build more partnerships. We also work on a term called gender mainstreaming, which really just means that we want everybody across Louisville to think about women. So whether you're in planning, economic development, parks and recreation, you're thinking about the impact on women. Last but not least, we focus on gender-based violence prevention. And I'm going to talk about just 2 ways that we try to create a safer Louisville as it pertains to women. So here are just a few snapshots and pictures: economic empowerment, our community leadership, which is our strongest program is the Office for Women Ambassador Program, but this year we also started a one-day offering intended for men called Office for Women Allies, where we had men talk about what healthy masculinity is, talking about men's mental health. We know that men are at higher risk for suicide. That's a gender equity issue that impacts them, and also how men can stand up to be active bystanders to prevent violence against women. That was really well attended for men all across the community. All right. And I'm going to focus in on two ways that we have really prevented and worked at preventing domestic violence. And those are, I do serve as the mayor's representative on the Domestic Violence Prevention and Coordinating Council and participate a lot in that, as well as fatality review. But the way that we have found that the Office for Women can add most value is in convening different partners across the community and promoting policies that prevent domestic violence and really looking internally at staff, as well as doing planning out in the community. So I'm going to focus on two ways that we do that. The first is, one of the things we think about is that my goal is that violence against women and domestic violence never happen in the first place. It's actually possible to prevent it. It's not an inevitability. And so one of the ways we do that is through policies. One of the most powerful things that we've done together collaboratively with, I think, some of you on council was to pass a paid leave ordinance for any Metro employees who are victims of domestic violence or any other crime, or anyone in their household, that they can take 7 days paid leave to do the things to prevent future violence. They can change the locks on their doors. They can move the kids out to a different school. They can go speak to a domestic violence advocate. They can get a protective order. They can go seek medical care from nurses and healthcare providers who will help them heal from the effects of violence. We know that people spend about 80% of their time in the workplace. That's the best place to reach people. So far, about 25 to 30 people in Metro have taken that leave. And what that also does is it offers an ability in a workplace culture to say we care about you. So it happens to also increase retention of quality employees and keep people safe in the workplace. So this is just an example of some of the awareness campaign that we've done to accompany that paid leave. You may have seen yesterday, if you were around downtown, there were over 100 people, including about 30 LMPD officers and folks from all different departments walking on a joint wellness walk and domestic violence awareness walk to raise awareness. So we're doing things to really say to Metro employees and to the community that you matter, that we will wrap around you with safety. So that's an evidence-based way that you can use legislation to decrease violence against women. The other thing I want to highlight that the office has been engaged in is looking at how city planning can prevent domestic violence or other crimes from happening in the first place. And so we are part of an international network of cities that's called CHANGE, the City Hub or Network for Gender Equity. Sorry, that blue is really hard to read. But the other cities, many of them are much larger than Louisville, but we punch above our weight class, to use an Ali boxing analogy, since we are the city of Ali. So you'll see London, England, Mexico City, Bogota, Paris, Amsterdam, Tokyo, lots of big cities. Many of these cities have already done design planning to see how you can make streets and parks and other places safer. And I want to say this is how this impacts victims in two ways, or potential victims. One, if there's a woman who is working, say, at the courthouse late at night, she works second or third shift, if she doesn't feel safe walking out to her car at night, or there's a factory that wants to come in the West End, and we've heard these are anecdotal examples that our office has heard, that can't get third shift workers because they don't feel safe going in at night, that's impacting whether or not people have jobs. If they don't have jobs, they can't pay for housing. And then suddenly this abusive ex-boyfriend comes back along and says, hey, you can stay with me. So these things are all connected. So economic independence, safety, jobs, spaces, how we create spaces. So we're really interested in doing that, because if we can move the needle just a little bit on any of these issues, if we can prevent one person from experiencing domestic violence, one person from experiencing a sexual assault, we've done our jobs well. So here's a couple of things we've done, and I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. Happy to talk more about this. Councilman Owen knows that that I will talk about this ad nauseum. We've done a project in his district. But we have a working group looking at this. You'll see Amy Luckett, who's been active on this as well, to convene both industry people, like planners and architects and engineers, along with government folks, anti-violence folks, community folks. We have done artist-led night walks with Robin G., who is an Office for Women Ambassador and poet. We did this in District 9, and it may sound like this sounds like a fluffy activity to do, but what it does is allows people to give feedback on spaces. So in some of these artist-led walks, we walked under an overpass that was sort of dark, that people were walking and thinking about how that space could be transformed. And just the act of women coming together in spaces creates more safety, more eyes on the street. We did body mapping with girls with the Louisville Fire Department to look at a park that's being redesigned to see how these girls would feel comfortable in this park and what they would like to see. We have done night walks in the Nulu district out to the soccer stadium to see in that pathway what would create more safety. And most recently, so last night I was leading a group to Eva Bandman Park on the River Road, and I'm out of time right now, I think, but I'll just close with this. And we were looking at safety. And I want to give you an example, the last thing, if you'll indulge me. We had a night picnic in Alberta O. Jones Park on Friday night. And I want to say that one of the responses that we got back was a constituent who said, that's in the middle of a gang area. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is what a constituent said. I don't feel safe going there at night. And we went, and like many other parks, sometimes you see a group of men maybe drinking or doing things. Maybe kids don't feel safe right in that spot. But when we showed up and we did this night picnic, kids came, they went back and got their moms. The guys who were kind of lingering there moved on. They still took up space, but they moved on. And we had this flourishing, beautiful nighttime picnic. And everyone felt safe. And it was a space where women and kids felt safe. So these activities, activating spaces, do increase safety. So while it may seem separate from the work that we're doing in terms of enforcement and policies, I will tell you as a lawyer who's worked in those fields for 25 years, I've passed a lot of legislation, not passed, I've advocated, you will pass the legislation. This is also appealing to me in terms of how we can create safer communities where women and kids feel safe and can flourish. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share this, and happy to meet more with any of you all about this.
Thank you, Gretchen. And now we get to hear from Brittany Hill Whitehead, who is an Office for Women Ambassador, and can tell us about her experience with that program.
Thank you so much. My name is Brittany Hill Whitehead, Office for Women Ambassador, and I stand before you first today as a survivor of 20 plus years myself. 20 years is a long journey, and my journey through domestic violence has really shaped every part of who I am as a mother, as a community leader, as an advocate, as a wife. I have 4 daughters, 1 son, and I personally have experienced a very full spectrum of this issue, from stalking to protective orders, just to navigating the complexities and of safety and just of recovering in the healing process. I promised myself 23 years ago that if I was able to get out of the situation that I was in, that I would give back. And that's why I'm standing before you today. Here I am. So I just wanted to go over some statistics that I found that were most up to date. Just in Louisville and across Kentucky, domestic violence obviously remains a very serious issue. Each year, Jefferson County alone sees over 3,700 domestic violence cases. That's more than 10 new cases every day. And last year alone, Kentucky State Police served over 17,000 emergency protective orders, helping survivors seek safety. But those numbers only really tell just a small part of the story, and those are numbers where we have that are reported. That's not even counting the cases for the individuals that are too scared to come forth. Also, domestic violence disproportionately affects women of color, immigrant communities, and nationally, nearly 44% of Black women and 54% of multiracial women and 46% of American Indian and Alaska Native women experience intimate partner violence, rape, or stalking, it rates much, much higher, much, much higher than the national average. Immigrant and refugee women face additional barriers. Those do include fear of deportation, language barriers, and limited access to resources that often help them from seeking help. So this is what makes the work that we do so important. Providing these safe spaces and the opportunity to have these conversations out loud. And these statistics aren't just numbers. They are mothers, they're daughters, they're our neighbors, they're our nieces, they're our friends, they're our coworkers, and they are families like mine. And they remind us of the responsibility to provide these pathways for safety and economic security. So domestic violence is not only about physical or emotional harm. It does affect every aspect of a person's life, including economic stability, which is something that I'm really passionate about, and something that through the Office of Women and with Gretchen, I've been able to really explore how we can have those discussions here in Louisville Metro. Survivors often face barriers to employment and financial independence, and financial insecurity is the top reason why people stay in domestic violence relationships. It was the number one reason for me. So those challenges that ripple through families, including children, and like I said, I know this, I've been affected, my own children, my eldest child was affected by this, and it's part of why I'm so committed to supporting the survivors and achieving both safety and stability. And today, I'm proud to say that that transformation does fuel my work, especially with the work I do with a leader at AMPT, where I lead the business incubator, and as a board member of the Louisville Independent Alliance as well. I'm able to help entrepreneurs, business owners build businesses, create stability, and change through generational outcomes. And through that work, I've personally seen and had conversations with business owners how economic empowerment and safe spaces can change lives, especially for women and families who face adversity. One of the things that I often do when we start our cohorts is make sure that I share my story out loud so that at some point, if our business owners are experiencing any of those situations, that they're able to come to me. And unfortunately, that's been the case. So last year, through the support of the Office for Women, we actually were able to secure funding from District 4, and that funding was directly going to business owners that were threatened, that were having to close down their businesses and lay off employees potentially because of the domestic violence situations that they were in. So those funds actually provided help with legal aid. It could be to change locks. It could be help with relocation. Just a number of things that kept those businesses thriving and open. Just in addition to being able to maintain their businesses, sustain employees, and contributing to the community, you know, they were able to move on despite those challenges. So as an Office for Women ambassador, I've been able to have the privilege to be able to be part of the inaugural class, and then after that, Gretchen always gets us together every year, and we're able to talk about our advocacy, and domestic violence always comes up every single year in every single conversation. So over the past couple of years, I was able to start and lead a domestic group of Office for Women ambassadors. We meet once a month, the first Friday of each month, and I would be more than happy to invite any of you all out to be a part of that conversation. We have been able to collaborate with the University of Louisville Translational and Health Research Program, local nonprofits, and small businesses just to ensure that healing and opportunity and growth reach the people that need it most. So every workshop that I'm a part of, every coaching session and program is rooted in one mission, and that is to show people that no matter what you've been through, you can rise, you can rebuild, and redefine your story. Survivorship isn't just about what happened to you, it's about what you do with your life. And for me, that means giving back and standing in rooms like this and using my voice for those that feel silenced. And so through my work with Metro Women's Program, I've had the privilege of bringing those women together, and they're women that are in the corporate field, they're leaders in nonprofit, small businesses, or just community leaders, or people that have been in those situations, including some men that we've actually had come join because they want to sit in and listen to see what they can do to help. So I'm here today really to challenge everybody in this room to invest in this work and to consider ways that we can collaborate across districts. I would like to share with you, what we've been able to accomplish as far as keeping businesses open with the resources that we were able to receive through District 4 last year, and the impact that it had on not only the businesses, but the people that were employed by those businesses. And as we honor Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I don't just stand here as a professional or a community leader or an advocate. I really stand here as proof that survival can evolve into service. So through policy, partnership, and purpose, I do believe that we definitely can build a community or continue to build upon the community that we've already established, where no one has to choose between safety and survival, and know that healing is possible. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you guys today. And again, I just want to open that invitation. Would love to invite you guys out at any time that you would like to meet with the Office for Women Ambassadors so we can find some ways that we can work together. And I also want to state that I just recently joined the Domestic Violence Prevention Council as well. So I hope to take the voice of the Office for Women Ambassadors into those meetings as well, and my personal experience and the advocacy experiences to work together. So thank you.
Brittany, thank you for that powerful testimony that you've shared here today and that you share so frequently through the community. You mentioned the Domestic Violence Prevention Coordinating Council. We're lucky today to get to hear from that group, so I want to invite Stacy Farnham up and Judge Lori Goodwin.
Good afternoon, and thank you guys for having us this afternoon. My name is Judge Lori Goodwin. I serve as Family Court Judge in Division 3 here in Jefferson County. I'm also the co-chair of the Domestic Violence Prevention Coordinating Council. I also serve as co-chair of the Domestic Violence Subcommittee for the Family Bar. I am also the chair of the board for the Exploited Children's Help Organization, which also focuses on prevention and intervention for child abuse and child safety, especially on the internet. But today I'm here to talk about my role as the co-chair for DVPCC with Stacy, and hopefully give you guys some insight on the work we've been doing and how you all can potentially help us out on this very important topic.
And I'm Stacy Farnham. I provide staff support to the Domestic Violence Prevention Coordinating Council. I work with the Criminal Justice Commission. And I have been with Metro for almost 21 years. 15 of that was at Metro Corrections, and the past 6 I've been with the council providing the staff support. So thank you all. We are so grateful for the invite today and to kind of explain to you all what we're doing on the DVPCC. Just a little bit of history and background, maybe. There we go. So in January 1996, we developed that ordinance, the Jefferson County DVPCC, and it was formed because of the realization that domestic violence is it's a community problem. It's not just a problem inside households, it's a community problem, and one that affects, so many in our community. So in 2003, we were reauthorized when the city merged and county merged. And our ordinance here, you can see that there, it outlines the purpose, our membership, our meetings, our quorum, duties, and staffing, which requires, of course, the Criminal Justice Commission to provide a staff assistance to the council.
The mission of DVPCC is to improve our interagency cooperation and communication in the area of domestic violence and abuse, promote effective prevention, intervention, and treatment based upon research and data collection, improve the system response to domestic violence and abuse, and to reduce incidences thereof. The council sets the priority, establishes committees, and monitors the work of the committee and staff. Through systemic efforts of DVPCC and its related committees, there have been numerous programs that have been established here in our city. Some of these initiatives established to help with domestic violence efforts include the creation of the Court Monitoring Center, VineLink, and the Domestic Violence Intake Center, addressing legislation strengthening provisions related to rape and sexual assault, domestic violence, missing and exploited children, and child abuse, implementation of the lethality assessment program, and hospital emergency room screening for domestic violence survivors.
And I'd just like to just add a little notes about a couple of those programs that have been created over the history. The VINE program, if you don't know, is the Victim Identification Notification Every Day. That system is where you can register as a victim, not just a victim of domestic violence, but as a victim, to be notified of when your perpetrator is released from jail so that you can prepare, have safety planning. And that started here in the DVPCC, and now that's across the United States, so that's pretty exciting. And the lethality assessment program, if you're not aware of what that is by LMPD. When the officer's on scene, there's a domestic violence situation, the officer will ask a series of questions to that victim on scene to identify if they are at high risk. They will connect them there on scene with the Center for Women and Family to provide those services to those victims. So just wanted to give a little context about those two projects. And then just a little bit about our membership. The agencies and members of the council, they're appointed by the mayor. And so we have probably about 40 individuals that sit on the council, and not just that, it's open meetings. And so we have other individuals from both community and other organizations that have joined. So we have a big group that's definitely there to help this cause.
So just to give you to tell you what the duties of the council are. Number one, we examine ways in which agencies, departments, and courts in Louisville Metro respond to domestic violence and abuse in order to improve those responses. Two, improve the cooperation and coordination among all participants in the justice system who deal with domestic violence and abuse. We make recommendations to the mayor, agencies, departments, the courts, and others regarding improving the response of domestic violence and abuse, examine and review legislation that relates to domestic violence and abuse, and recommend appropriate action to the mayor, the president of Metro Council, and the chair of the Louisville Jefferson County Legislative Delegation. And we also encourage and promote public education regarding domestic violence and abuse.
And so my job as the staff support to DVPCC involves research, data analysis. I prepare our meeting agendas in partnership with our co-chairs, writing meeting summaries, collecting our data for the annual snapshot, seeking grants, writing and submitting grants, and managing those if awarded. This is the organizational chart of the DVPCC, and you will see underneath that there are 3 subcommittees: the Interagency Committee, Data Committee, and the Fatality Review Committee. This is really where all of the committee work is done, and then it's reported up to the DVPCC.
And much of the work over the past 5 years by the committees has been focused on implementing recommendations from a comprehensive community assessment, which is a blueprint for improving services for victims of domestic and interpersonal violence. Of the 83 recommendations included in the assessment, the council has implemented 33, with many more in process. The Interagency Committee was created to serve as a forum for ongoing information sharing and problem solving, to provide assistance with program research and development, and to prioritize and implement recommendations around advocacy. Projects include the Domestic Violence Handbook, training initiatives, including other things. We're very happy to say that DV Handbook has been translated into several other languages as well, so that's not a barrier to those who are non-English speaking residents.
And not to have been there, The Domestic Violence Handbook is a local guide on how to navigate the EPO process from start to finish. It also has resources in it, local resources for victims that they can reach out to. And like she said, that handbook has been translated into Swahili, Kinyarwanda, Arabic, English, and Spanish. It is available. We have small business size cards that we put QR codes on, so they're a little more discreet. You can put those in your pocket. You can scan that QR code and it'll take you right to the website where you can look at any of those domestic violence handbooks.
And I believe, well, I know, the handbook will also direct you to the Domestic Violence Intake Center, which is open 24/7. So if any of your constituents come to you or seeking advice or where to go to file for emergency protective order or interpersonal protective order, they can go to the DV IC 24/7, 365, okay? The Fatality Review Committee is tasked with reviewing local cases of domestic violence which result in either homicides or suicides, with the goal of identifying ways to improve the system and prevent domestic violence fatalities. By conducting a multidisciplinary and multi-agency systems review of domestic violence fatalities, the committee seeks to pinpoint areas and means by which to increase and enhance coordinated agency and community responses to domestic violence. The information shared in these meetings is confidential per statute, and the FRC produces a biannual report highlighting the review process to include systemic recommendations. This is probably, I don't want to say the most important, but it is one of those committees where all of the agencies come together to really try to put our heads together to figure out how can we reduce the incidences of domestic-related homicides and suicides here in our community, which I also served on for quite some time before I became the co-chair of this committee. Previously, before going on the bench, I served 13 years as an attorney at the Legal Aid Society, where I only represented victims or survivors of domestic violence and sexual abuse, or sexual assault. So it is very important that these agencies come together to help come up with some processes to reduce these incidences. And then lastly, the Data Committee, this is our newest committee. At the January DVPCC meeting, members recommended forming a data committee to help drive the council's work forward. This committee began convening and exploring the possibility of developing a local domestic violence dashboard.
And here you'll see that domestic violence handbook that we were just kind of talking about that provides those local resources for victims. I do have those cards with me today. If you'd like to take some, pass those out within your community. Happy to get more to you all. I have the actual handbooks printed as well, but those, of course, those business cards are a lot easier to pass out and kind of carry. And then, as Lori kind of mentioned, the Fatality Review Report, the 2023-2024 report will be presented next week's DVPCC meeting next Thursday on the 23rd. Once that is presented to the council, then it will be made public on our website at the Criminal Justice Commission. By all means, you can contact me. I can give you a copy of that report after that. Just to highlight, just a couple of things that we're seeing. I don't know if any of you attended the Speak Their Names event with the CEO, Elizabeth Wessels-Martin, at the Center for Women and Families this week, but she mentioned that the homicides are down, and that is correct. But the arrests, as you can see on here, 6,214 arrests during those 2 years of domestic violence events, and that's an increase of 62%. So while we're not seeing as many homicides, we are definitely increasing domestic violence events throughout our city. You'll see, again, 7,430 cases that were prosecuted by the Jefferson County Attorney's Office. That's almost a 4% increase there. And if you look at the amount of EPOs, 8,934 emergency protective orders filed in Jefferson Family Court, and that is a 29% increase from our last report. And then the very bottom, I think, is very important there, 16,999 hotline calls to the Center for Women and Families, a 125% increase from the 2 years prior. So that kind of gives you an overall idea of, while the homicides might be decreasing for domestic violence, those events and these incidences are increasing throughout our city. And this is just our contact information. Again, please feel free to contact us if you have any other questions, or you'd like copies of reports or copies of the resources that we have. Happy to get those to you all. And again, thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah, I'll just echo Stacy. Thank you for having us. And if any of you wish or want to talk further about the incidences of domestic violence, how we can prevent these incidences in our community, feel free to reach out to me. I could talk, like Gretchen said, ad nauseum about the issues, so feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you.
And feel free to come next week too, if you'd like to.
Thank you. If you all would stay there for just a moment.
Absolutely.
Colleagues, I want to thank you again for being here. We have had fully 50% of the Metro Council in this space today, hearing from these experts. Please raise your hand if you learned something. Colleagues, please raise your hand if you got an idea. I did too. We've only done 30-something out of the 80-something recommendations.
Yeah, I can expand.
Right.
If you'd like, I can expand on that.
Please.
Okay, so that community assessment report was done in 2019, before COVID happened, and those were 83 recommendations. Professor Emily Sack came in, wrote that report, happy to share it. But a lot of those we tried to implement during COVID. Unfortunately, it was very difficult. We were doing virtual meetings. We did implement a lot of those. A lot of those were legislative that we were kind of unable to get to move. A lot of those, unfortunately, became outdated throughout the years that we've been working on those. After COVID, a lot of things changed. And so that's why there's not, a huge amount, but happy to share that community assessment report with you all at any time. It's on our website as well.
Thank you. It is my hope that we can now build on this shared awareness and deepen relationships with the folks who are doing this work full-time in our community and identify priorities within our caucuses and within the council. The Metro Council can be a policymaking body that benefits women in Louisville. We can be bystanders, or we can intervene. So I do want to open it up for questions. Do any of my colleagues have questions for these folks or for the Office for Women? Councilwoman McCraney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I served on the Domestic Violence Prevention Coordinating Council in 2019 and 2020, and I can vouch for the fact that it is a very dedicated board of interested women who take this thing seriously. And while that number looks odd that they weren't all implemented, trust me when I tell you, it was very difficult for us to have to meet virtually every meeting in 2020. But the standards that they have set and the parameters and all of the commitment that they show on that particular board is incredible. And I do encourage our council to get behind this work because it is important work and they are very dedicated. And I thank both of you.
And
so
if I
much.
could get like $1 billion, we could probably implement about, 30 more of those recommendations. But funding is definitely, a very large problem when it comes to, upgrading case management systems or, implementing new processes or things within, multiple agencies. So again, that's another reason why some of those we couldn't. So we did as much as we could, and we're still plugging along, changing with times, how to, different initiatives, but we've done a lot of great work. Thank you so much, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Parrish, right.
Thank you, Councilwoman Josie Raymond. I am excited. I moved things around to get here because this is a very important topic for me, both personally and professionally. I have 3 questions, but first I want to say, your budget, I want to know what your budget is. That's one of my questions. But what you've been able to accomplish is phenomenal. And to know that you two are involved, I've seen you all in different spaces, so that's great. I recently joined the Survivor Advisory Committee with Zero V, and I wanted to know if you have any direct relationship with that. Olivia Spradlin is my contact, and I've worked with her around bail reform issues and things like that as this issue crosses over with pretrial incarceration. And then just, thinking that my oldest daughter turns 33 next week, And thinking about when she was 3, my being incarcerated, trying to save my life because of a domestic violence situation. And thinking about when you said that people can, you or someone else said that, the woman that spoke before you, you can move towards service. You can go from being a survivor to service. So that's how I try to look at my engagement. So the question was, what's your budget like? Do you have a relationship with Zero V? And where are those meetings on Fridays? Do you have brick and mortar, or are they in the ambassador's office? The Office of Women.
So our budget is $0. A lot like printing for our handbooks, that's through grants, grant funding that we've received that our office through the Improving Criminal Justice Response Grant, we were able to get some printing money through that. The Office for Women provided some money for printing, and the Office of Immigrant Affairs. So we kind of reached in a bunch of different pockets to kind of get that, but we do not have a budget. As far as working with Zero V, we do. Most of the work that we do with Zero V involves their Batters Intervention program that is ran under them. They come several times to fatality review committees or to our DVPCC to give presentations, kind of give updates on that. Elizabeth Wessels-Martin with the Center for Women and Family, I believe she serves on their board, and she's kind of like our liaison to them as well for things that they do. So we do have a relationship with them as well. And what was the last question? Oh, our meetings. So our meetings are the last Thursdays. We meet 4 times a year. That's January, April, July, and October. So next Thursday from 12 to 1, we will be at the Judicial Center, 6th floor of the Crown Room.
And Brittany, I think there was a question about your meetings too, with the survivors group that you've formed.
Yes. So the meetings that we have every first Friday that are powered by the Office for Women are hybrid. We do have some that are virtual Zoom, and then we do sometimes meet in person. It just depends on what we have going on that month, but I will make sure that I send the information over to Gretchen, and she can get that out to everybody.
Councilman Lininger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just kind of touch on a hybrid of Councilwoman Parrish Wright's questions about Zero V and the budget. I'm the current council representative on the Domestic Violence Prevention Coordinating Council, and one of the things that I was most interested in some of our most recent meetings was about the Batterers Intervention Program and how little money it would take for Metro government to be able to support that fully and really change the direction of that program. And we know that this is a policy initiative that can really make a difference in lives in our community. And it's truly fractional pennies when you look at our overall budget. And I think that's something that we should look towards absolutely supporting. I think it was $20,000 was they said that would completely change the course of the program. And it's something that can save lives here in Jefferson County. I think it's something we should look at.
That sounds like an NDF. Other questions? I want to thank my colleagues again for being here. I want to thank all of our presenters and interested folks in the room. I'll be sure that we see that new report that comes out next week and that we schedule time to put our heads together and really see if we can build on what we learned today. Thank you, everyone.